Something that I have heard neurodivergent people talk about is how self aware they are and how this plays out when they try to do things like therapy, for example, and they get comments from mental health providers like, wow, you're so self aware. And I found this very interesting because I have had a lot of experience with therapy both before I knew I was autistic and also after. And in both situations, I have got similar comments from my therapist where they're like, wow, like you're really self aware. Like you have a lot of insight into your thoughts and feelings and why things are the way that they are. And I always found that kind of funny because in my head, I'm just like, yeah, like how could I not have all of this insight? I've been living in my brain every day for the past like however many years I've been alive. I always thought it was a really weird comment to make. Well, later on I come to find out that not everyone is self-aware, and I didn't know that. I thought that like everyone's brain worked the way that my brain worked until I found out that that wasn't true. And yeah, I just started reflecting on my experiences with therapy both before and after realizing I was autistic, because in the past few months I got a new therapist who is neurodivergent friendly, also neurodivergent, I believe. And I just started to think to myself, like, wow, what is the point of me going to therapy? Because I feel like all I do is share all of these things. And not only do I share things, but I also seem to share the reasons why those things are happening. Like, I can say, oh, this happened, and I had this response to it, and I think that I reacted in this way because XYZ time ago, this happened, which led me to develop this pattern or this fear, and blah, 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 blah. And they're just like, yeah, wow, you are so insightful. You have done so much introspection. And I'm like, okay, now what? Like, are you gonna add anything to that? Or, yeah, so in therapy, it kind of just seems like I'm not doing anything that I couldn't be doing without the therapist there. Like, I'm just speaking these things out loud and maybe every so often getting like validation from the therapist, or maybe once in a blue moon they will point out something about me or something that I did or said that I didn't actually realize I was doing, but it's so rare. It really made me start to think that, like, I don't think there's anything this therapist could tell me about myself that I don't already know. And that thought left me in a weird situation, right? Because I feel like what happens so often in therapy is like, if you are not insanely self aware, then I feel like therapy can be more productive because your therapist can help you like figure out why you react certain ways, why you are the way you are, what happened in your past to like make you the person that you are today, and how do you manage that and deal with it. And like, yeah, that's all fine and cool, but those are all things that I've already done in my brain, like on my own. So I find that like I have all of this insight, right? And I spew it out to my therapist and they're like, wow, so insightful. But like, okay, cool, we've established these grounds. Now what do I do about it? Like, how do I change it? Like, it almost makes me feel like I've done the work that they were going to do, so there's just not really work left for them to do. So now they're just kind of like sitting there, like just providing like moral support, and um, it's not really productive. I've also gone through phases in my life where I felt like I was so self aware that it was becoming a problem. Like, I was so self aware that it was just like making me feel existential dread. and I couldn't turn it off. Like, I couldn't be less self-aware, and it was driving me insane. But I feel like as a neurodivergent person, like, this isn't the weirdest thing in the world, because you go through your entire life being hyper aware of who you are and the way that people perceive and respond to you. And so you're self-monitoring everything about yourself, the way you talk, the things you say, the things you do, the way you dress, the way you move, how you act as you move through the world. You become so hyper aware of all of these things, and most of us are actively working every day to manipulate them, to try to fit in, to try to appear normal, especially when we are undiagnosed, before we even kind of realize this subconscious work that we're doing every day. But yeah, I've started to like realize that therapy is not necessarily helpful for me. Like, the thing is too is that I've had different therapists. Like, I've tried different therapists, like a handful, and like I never feel different. Either, like, I never feel different from one therapist to the next. It just feels like the same situation where I have all this insight about myself and I'm self-aware, and I bring all the facts, and they're just like, wow, you really brought all the facts. And I'm like, yeah, isn't that the point? Like, what, ma'am? Like, what? So that's been my current experience with therapy. After coming to terms with my diagnosis, after unpacking all of these things about myself, after actually like learning who the person was that was like buried underneath all of it, and doing my best to like love her and care for her because no one else ever did. But thinking back to my experiences with therapy as like a child slash teenager, before I knew that I was autistic, I remember feeling very differently. I remember talking to therapists and explaining all the things that I was going through and all the things that I was feeling. And of course, no one ever suspected autism, but they were like, oh wow, you're depressed, you're anxious. Because it's just rocket science, you know? This is not beer, it's kombucha. I would never. But yeah, I just remember like as a kid trying to explain my experiences to therapists and feeling so invisible, feeling really invisible, feeling invalidated, almost gaslit sometimes, because I would have these feelings inside, right? Like, I knew that something wasn't right. I knew that something was different. I knew that I felt like an alien. I felt broken. I knew that I was experiencing all of these things that the kids around me weren't experiencing, and I saw that. I knew it. Like, there was not an inch of me that was uncertain about that. So, like, I walk in knowing deep down something is off, something is wrong. And I'm explaining all my feelings to this person, and I'm almost kind of told that, like, what I'm feeling is normal, and everyone feels that way, and, like, I'm not alone in feeling it. Which typically might be a good response, right? To let someone know that they are not alone, they are not the only ones feeling a certain way, that a lot of people in their age group are dealing with the issues that they're dealing with, etc., etc. However, in that specific situation where I was an undiagnosed autistic child who knew that something was wrong and something was different and something was off and something was not right and it was eating me alive, to go in a room and sit in a chair and try to express that and be told that everyone feels this way is fucking detrimental. So detrimental. Because if they're right, if everyone feels that way, then why am I the only one in this current state that I'm in right now? Why are the kids around me not struggling in XYZ ways? Why am I the only one who had to be removed from school, who can't make friends, who got bullied, who got laughed at, whatever it is, all of these things that I could visibly see were different. Like, I could not deny the ways that my life and my existence differed from others around me. So to know that, not only know it and feel it, but to literally see it and to be told, but everyone feels this way. Oh my God. That shit almost killed me. Like, genuinely, it almost killed me. It, like, looking back now, it almost feels like I was being gaslit, right? Like, obviously, my therapist did not actually realize that I could have been autistic because it was never brought up. But it's just the way that I knew deep down. I knew it, I felt it, and I saw it, and I was just told by really the only person who could have possibly helped me at the time that, like, what I was feeling was normal, when it wasn't normal. It was not standard, it was not normal, it was not typical. And that doesn't make it a bad thing. But when you know that something is different and you are told that it's not, that you're just like everyone else, but that's obviously not the case, that will only make you feel so much more broken and so much more deficient and so much more alone and isolated and invisible, and that's exactly what it did for me. Anyway, no hard feelings or ill will to any of those therapists that I did have, but looking back, it is so interesting to see kind of like the role that played. Like, I was supposed to be getting help for all of the mental health experiences and struggles that I was dealing with that were kind of a result of me being an undiagnosed autistic, only to be told that, like, nothing is wrong with me and everyone feels that way, when that was in fact not true, ultimately. And I just feel like that is really, really, really dangerous. That is really dangerous, and that is one of the reasons that women going undetected is so dangerous, and it is one of the reasons that autistic women are literally 13 times more likely to die by suicide than the general population. Autistic women are more likely to attempt suicide, more likely to die by suicide. They self-harm at greater rates, they are depressed at greater rates. They are statistically just such an unfortunate population. I tried to end my life not one but 2 times as a teenager. I think the biggest underlying feeling under all of the depression, all of the sadness, and just the thing that really, really made me want to go was the fact that I felt like the world was not made for me. I literally remember having that thought all the time. Like, I was like, this world was not made for me. Like, I am not meant to be here. I can't do this. I'm thinking back to the fact that I had those thoughts from childhood. And I was told by the people around me that I was fine. There was nothing wrong with me. I was just dramatic or X or Y or Z, whatever, right? But I knew, you know? And I felt like this little person with this big, huge, like, secret, and no one else saw it, and no one else believed it. And I was the only one who could feel how true it was, that, like, I was not built to live this life. Like, I was not built to survive it. I couldn't do it no matter how hard I tried. I felt so broken. I think this not only speaks to the importance of bias in clinical practice when it comes to recognizing and diagnosing autistic girls, but also just bringing attention to the fact that autistic girls present differently than autistic boys for a lot of reasons. One of those probably has a lot to do with gender socialization and the way that girls are taught to internalize, they are taught to smile and keep going, they're taught to be people pleasers. It is unacceptable for girls to behave in some of the ways that boys do. The history of autism and autism research literally excluded girls and women. Autism was literally thought to be like a male condition. Like they were like, oh, this is like the male brain. Like it's so absurd. But that's why it's so important to talk about these things, to spread awareness, to advocate for the people who might not be able to advocate for themselves at the moment, to actually listen to and trust autistic people, to trust them as experts of their own experiences, because no one knows what you're feeling better than you do. And at the end of the day, like, you can be told by other people that, you know, you're normal, you're fine, nothing's wrong with you, but you will absolutely know if you're different. You will absolutely know if something is wrong with you. Autism is not something wrong with you, but that is the feeling that most of us have walking through life when we're autistic, and we don't know that. Now, this conversation kind of derailed a little bit. It's okay, there are many important conversations to be had. Okay, yeah, if you listen to me ramble, thanks. Take care of yourself, drink some water, eat some food. You deserve to be healthy and happy. Know that you are worthy of life and living, and you always will be, and you're never alone. And if you want to have a little chat in the comments or say hello, feel free. My plant is growing so long. She was just a little child when I first bought her, and my cat ate it about 3 times. That's why her leaves are so uneven. But yeah, this is Priscilla. She's sending you all the good vibes. Wow, she really is unique. Okay, bye.